Hey everyone, how's it going? I hope you're all doing great, as I always say, following the 3 H's of the channel and all that wonderful stuff. And in this video, I have a bunch of encounters with cryptids and high strangeness that are just all around strange. What a great intro, eh? Anyways, if this sounds like something that you're interested in, definitely pull up a stump with me, and let's jump into it. Thank you for watching. When I was 20 years old, I was living in a small town in New Brunswick. I was skeptic to my core. I was an atheist my whole life, although I did believe in the occasional UFO phenomenon, but I thought that most had a rational explanation. But this changed one night. I was walking home from a party at a friend's house. This was during peak coronavirus, but we didn't really respect the social distancing thing. Now I left the party around 2 a.m., and it's a 20-minute walk home. 15 minutes if you cut across these two big fields. The fields are separated by a row of trees that were planted to mark the property line, as far as I can recall. Luckily, there's just a dusting of snow, so I'm physically capable of cutting across. When the snow gets too high, the shortcut becomes very unrealistic and I have to take the long way around. But anyways, once I reach the fields, I set off across them. And I'm looking at the ground mostly as I walk because I like the noise that my feet make on the rough snow. I had about 3 beer, and that made me kind of buzzed, but not really enough to see things. Anyways, I was listening to music. As I crossed the field, I begin to feel dread, and it's a mounting sense, like waves and waves of dread. I'm looking up now. My eyes are darting around. As I near the trees in the middle of the field, I see the shape. It's a black shape, but it's the shape of an animal. It looks like a dog. Initially, I'm a little taken back, but then I laugh at myself because it's just a dog. But I keep looking at it. I was probably 10 to 15 meters from the trees. I noticed that it's absolutely massive, bigger than any dog I have ever seen in my life. I get a bit nervous. I stay frozen, thinking of what to do. It growls at me. I start walking backwards. Then suddenly, it starts running at me, on 2 legs, with its arms out like it wants to hurt me, to kill me. I think to run, but my legs don't move. As it nears, and this sounds stupid, but I swear that I saw it. Its eyes glinted as like a red color. I just keep thinking to myself, run, run, please run. But my legs just aren't responding. It lunges through the air at me. I wince, close my eyes in fear, and prepare for an impact. I feel an impact in my chest. I fall down. It feels like I just got pushed very hard. I open my eyes. To my amazement, I'm still alive. I'm laying on the ground. And also, there's no dog. I'm by myself. I'm frantically looking around everywhere, in all directions, thinking maybe it's toying with me. But it never came back. There was no proof of it even being there. Not even any footprints. Not even between the trees where it was sitting before I got up to it. I've never been scared like that in my life. I've never had anything happen to me like that. Ever since then, I've been nervous with the lights off. I never believed in ghosts or the paranormal, but I literally have no explanation as to what happened that night. I had something really bizarre happen to me, and I'm still not really sure of the explanation. Just super weird. A few years ago, I was 16 years old. I was living on an acreage with the family in Southern Alberta, out in the foothills. It was late in the summertime. That means cruising around on the quad, video games, and getting rid of pests around the farm. Now, outside of the property, there's some dilapidated buildings. They have old farm equipment in them, random piles of junk. They occasionally break up the yellowing hills of endless gravel roads. I explore them occasionally, but there's never much to see, or much out of the ordinary, for that matter. So, late one afternoon, it was on your typical hot, windy day, I go out for a quad ride out in the hills. I venture out longer and later than usual, past the usual fences and stuff. There's nobody around for miles. That profoundly alone feeling, like you're the last person on earth. I reach the top of this hill, and I look around to enjoy the view. At the foot of the hill that I'm on, I see some old rusted out cars, and farm equipment and parts of other cars, and it's weird. They're all arranged in a circular fashion around a large boulder, as big as my quad at least. It's pretty cool, so I activate my little sneak mode. I get off the quad. I walk down the hill to stretch my legs. As soon as I walk down, the wind stops suddenly. This is not unusual for Alberta. I hear the buzzing of insects, and the summer heat starts to get stronger. I reach the junk circle. Something in the back of my head says that this is all wrong, but I can't quite place why it's all wrong. Just everything feels off. So I'm poking around in the rusted out car. The buzzing noise is getting a lot louder. I find some photos that are now bleached into yellow squares by the sun, and not much else in the car. And then, right in my ear, I start to hear cracking and snapping noises. I think it's the heat, but the noise becomes overwhelming. It's basically an absolute cacophony of dry summer sounds, cranked to the max. I get out of the old car. I slump in its shadow to cool off. I raise my hand to shade my eyes from the sun. Despite the heat, I break out in goosebumps and cold sweat, like a fever, and I try to talk to myself, but I can't hear a word through the noise. I look around, and suddenly it hits me. All of the shadows of all the crap in the junk circle have no relation to the sun at all. Instead, they're all being drawn toward the boulder at the center, like they're reaching toward it. I'm transfixed as the shadow I'm sitting in creeps forward in spite of the sun shining in my face. With all of my effort, I try to stand. The heat and the noise make it so hard. Inexplicably, I become terrified of what will happen when the shadows reach the boulder. It feels like something terrible. I finally stand up. I stumble out of the junk circle. The heat stops. The noise quiets back down to an insect buzz. Halfway up the hill, the wind comes back. It feels like it's taking forever to get back up this hill. I look back to see the ring of shadow nearly touching the boulder. As soon as I looked back, the noise came back, more intense than ever. But as soon as I looked away, it stopped again. Finally, I reached my quad. I peel out of there, and I drive home as fast as possible. I got a nasty sunburn, and I was a bit dehydrated, but not super dehydrated. The noise didn't leave any kind of ringing in my ears either, despite being as loud as a shotgun blast in a tin shack. I would say that there was something with my brain playing tricks on me, but I went back there once more, and this time was even weirder. The boulder that before was blank now had weird carvings in it. I just got a sense of dread just being near it, so I just left and went back. But yeah, very strange. Here's some backstory. I'm an operating engineer, and I have a friend through my union that I call T. T worked in the North Woods of Canada a lot when he was younger, and he was into pipelining. I met him while working at a power station. He was a super cool guy. He always had awesome stories, nothing really paranormal level, but that changed one night. We were having a few beers in my garage, working on his mud truck, or woods truck, depending on where you are. He all of a sudden said, I've got a story for you. You seem like a level-headed guy. I haven't told many people about this, but I want to know your thoughts. I didn't know what I was in for, but I said okay. This story, from now on, will be told from his point of view, as if he's telling it. I was working running an excavator and survey crew in northwestern Alberta. I had to survey for a new storage loop. I had a partner and a brand new K1500 pickup truck, and some basic survey tools, and a rifle. This is in 2001, so I had very basic cell phone reception with some fancy phone that they gave me, and we also used a CB to communicate. The company's reasoning for the rifle was in case of a bear or something like that. Anyways, we were doing our survey stuff, marking natural landmarks, wetlands, and protected areas. It's pretty easy stuff if you know what you're doing. And then, while doing this, I catch something at the corner of my eye, but I brush it off initially, as deer are very common and they're kind of spooked around humans. So I continue to work until the sun starts going down, and then we begin to pack up to go home. I have to work the same area the next day and finish up to get to the site around 10 a.m. Again, I see something huge, very big, looking down from a ridge. It almost looked like a bear standing on its hind legs, but it was different somehow. Its head was different. The posture was different. I beep the truck horn. The thing turns around and disappears into the thick brush. By this point, I had decided to leave the rifle unlocked in case this bear, quotes, returns. I was setting up on the benchmark. My partner, D, had the grade rod for today. I went back to the truck to get my clipboard and write down today's measurements. That's when I hear the most blood-curdling scream. It was D, and he sounded like he was absolutely terrified. Then, it sounded like something was attacking him. I grabbed the rifle. I couldn't see him anymore. I saw the brush being shaken all around. I ran into it, calling out. No response. I kept pushing. I made it to a sort of clearing. I saw the thing again. This time, it's dragging D behind it. For some reason I shout, "Hey!" It turned and growled at me and bared its teeth. I didn't hesitate. I emptied half a clip into it. The thing screeched, dropped D, and took off fast into the dark woods on two legs. I get to D. He's very badly injured, beaten up. His face is swollen. His breathing is weak. I do my best to pick him up and get us both back to the truck as quick as I can. Halfway up the slope to the truck, I hear the screech again, but this time It sounds like there's more than one. The screeching is getting closer. I'm scrambling as fast as I can. I manage to get Dee into the passenger side of the truck, and then I speed off. I left the tools at the site, but at this point, I really didn't care. I get Dee to the company infirmary. Briefly, he wakes up. He sees an area where he sees me, and he says a quiet, "Thank you," and then passes out again, and he was out for days. I get questioned about what happened. I literally tell them that I don't really know, that we were attacked. I get offered to work in the yard for the time being until the investigation is complete. Days later, when Dee gets asked about what happened, he woke up and he was strong enough to talk. He says that he didn't really remember. He remembers getting hit, and that's it. Weeks later, I find out that I'm going back to survey. I beg them to give me more time. They figure that I might have some trauma, so another crew gets put together. 2 weeks go by, and one of the surveyors, unfortunately, goes missing in the same area. I get questioned by a forest ranger about what I really saw. I tell him. He looks at me and he says, "We're saying it's a bear." But I knew and he knew. Our expressions both told us it wasn't a bear. Very soon after that, as soon as I had enough stamps, I quit. After this, he told me that that's why he never works in the woods anymore. He said there's some spots that we just don't belong. I believe him, and he was absolutely relieved to finally tell someone who didn't think he was crazy. Right around September of 2017, I had a relationship end, and it was bad, very messy. I needed to clear my head. I live in Kentucky, so there isn't a lot of full-blown forest, but I decided to dig out the old shotgun and head in the woods for some camping. I had to travel a bit because, as I said, in my specific area, there isn't a lot of forest. The one place that I know that I will be able to escape whatever is going on in my head and just say F you to the modern world is the Daniel Boone National Forest. Henceforth, I will refer to this as DB Forest. It's huge. You can go off the beaten path and end up miles and miles away from any other human being. I spend about 2 days gathering supplies, ammunition, food, water, extra warm clothing in case the weather turns to crap. I had enough stuff to stay a whole week, so I load up my Jeep and I get on the road. I got there at about 7 p.m. I left around 5 because I wanted to have a home-cooked dinner before I forced myself to live on canned chili and whatever I could hunt. I parked and looked at the trail map to get my bearings. After taking an hour to plan a safe route into the heart of the forest, I got on the move. On the first day, I hiked a good 10 miles, and about half of that was off the path. I lost a Snickers bar down in a ravine, and that was pretty disheartening, to be honest. I made camp by this stream, so if my fire started to become an issue or got out of control, I wouldn't have to put it out with my drinking water. I left my shelter for about 2 hours to hunt, but I didn't find squat. I found a few deer, but they were way out of season. I came back to camp, sucked it up, and ate canned chili. The routine of hiking further and setting up camp continued without incident until 3 days in. I was hunting again, and this time I actually killed a rabbit. Rabbit was also out of season, but at the time I was tired of eating canned chili, and it made my stomach hurt the night before. So there I was, bringing it back to camp, and on top of the hill to my right, there were some particularly tall trees. Dangling between two branches was a thing. I don't know what else to call it. It had two short legs and two incredibly long arms. It had hands that gripped around the entire trunk of each tree. I couldn't really see its face. All I knew at this point was that it saw me looking at it. In a single swift motion, whatever it was flung itself backward, and I heard bark breaking further back in the woods. I returned to my camp. Once again, it was there. I saw it. This time, it was about 200 feet from me. Once again, it retreated in the same fashion as it did previously, except this time, I saw it clinging to trees and swinging around until it eventually went out of sight. Whatever this thing was, I wasn't getting vibes from it that it was a predator or malevolent or anything like that. It seemed to be more curious, more of an observer, just wondering what I was, who I was, what I was doing. Everywhere I went until the 5th day, my little follower was right there with me, never more than 200 feet away, and never less than 100 feet. I had finally gotten a look at its face by this point. It wasn't too disturbing, to be honest. It looked like the face of a monkey, but the only thing that I could pick out that was odd was the jaw. It's permanently hanging open, or it seemed to be anyways. Inside its mouth seemed to be about 2 rows of teeth on each jaw, but the teeth looked oddly human apart from that. Anyway, on the 5th day, I woke up and began packing up camp. I looked around for my little buddy. I found him missing. At this point, I was going to head back home. I began the long hike back. When I had reached the halfway point between campsites, I noticed my little friend on a tree, but something was different. His arms were dangling at his sides. His legs were dangling too. I looked closer, and I see that he had been impaled on a broken off branch. I booked it a good 400 feet before looking back again. There was another of whatever this thing was. This one was significantly larger and tearing apart the smaller one. I watched it eat for a good 30 seconds before it looked at me. I said out loud, "Well, this is my time to go." This one gave me serious bad vibes, hateful, malevolent, definitely predatory. This time, I hiked well after nightfall. Every once in a while, I would hear deep hoots and howls. At around midnight, I heard crackling bark and strained branches just behind me. Here is when I said, "Screw this," and I started running. I heard whatever it was gaining speed, and I realized that flight wasn't working. I jumped straight to fight, and I turned around and unloaded the shotgun into the trees behind me. I was met with silence. I wish I could say that I killed it, that I avenged my little friend, but I didn't. I didn't hear a pained howl. I didn't hear my shots impact anything other than wood. Just silence. The thing was long gone. It ran away. My shots probably scared it away, and at the time I was fine with that. I didn't stop hiking until I reached my car almost a day later. I came home. I decided that I should write down some notes about what happened. I did this, and then forgot about it. And now here I am. So, what'd you think of those? Let me know which one was your favorite one down in the comments. And what an intro, eh? Strange high strangeness? Oh, so creative. Anyways, if you liked the video, then please like and subscribe. And if you would like to support the channel, in the description below, I have a PayPal and a Patreon that you can donate to if you like to. No pressure though. Just watching the video and subscribing helps a lot too. And if you notice a bit of white noise in the background, it might be a fan or an air conditioner depending on where I'm recording this. And yeah, with that, I won't keep you much longer. I hope you enjoyed the video, and I'll put up some other videos right here that you can click on if you're new to the channel, or if you just haven't seen them before. And with that, I thank you for pulling up a stump, and I'll see you in the next one. Thank you for watching.